Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Oniken. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then the second question you might have is, Northern Lion, why are you doing a Let's Look at of a game that came out clearly in the mid to late 80s or early 90s? Well, actually, this is a retro-inspired, very NES in particular inspired action platformer game that came out in 2012. I believe it was released in 2012 anyway, but it's actually just released on Steam here in February 2014 after getting successfully through the Greenlight campaign. It apes games like Contra and Ninja Gaiden, takes a lot of their aesthetic, and it's really interesting and kind of rare as we just kind of get started here. It's interesting and rare to see a game that adheres to this kind of aesthetic so kind of lovingly as opposed to just like a classic 16 or 8-bit style. This definitely goes for like that hardcore NES style color palette. It does a very good job. Of definitely, you know, aping that visual style of NES games. I guess that's the Northern Lion drinking game here, is take a drink every time I say aping. I skipped through a little bit of the story. It's kind of your standard, like, futuristic, you know, dystopian cyberpunk story, except we have a samurai sword. We're playing as Zuko here. I hope I have that correctly, but I've accidentally skipped through a couple of the cutscenes on my way, because it's all about the gameplay as far as I'm concerned, you know? Let's just take out this guy, and then I'll have a chance to actually formulate my thoughts for a second. Okay! We're playing Oniken here. We have a very simple, sorry, Zaku is our name. We have a very simple kind of movement and attack style that we have going on here. We can jump, we can slice with our sword, and by using up and the sword button, we can throw a grenade, which actually does become increasingly important. Now, unlike a game like Mega Man, if we fall into that fire, we're not going to die necessarily right away, and we're not going to die in one hit regardless. It definitely feels like a Ninja Gaiden kind of mixed with a Castlevania, if that makes sense. Kind of feels like the way like the power-up and grenade system works kind of feels like a Castlevania, you know, maybe like Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse or something like that. Oh, okay. Just hang out here for a second. I'm really bad at this game, and as one might expect, given the, you know, the kinds of games that I have already mentioned over the start of this video, it's a game that's exceptionally difficult. And, you know, I've mentioned Contra and Ninja Gaiden so far, but it's also similar to a few games that have come out fairly recently. In particular, I think that it's most kind of like, not futuristic, but its most contemporary peer is something like Volgar the Viking. I could just throw a grenade and kill that guy so much easier. But yeah, Volgar the Viking definitely has kind of a similar kind of mission statement going on, I think. Oh, don't get hit again. I'm going to lose my sweet power up here that lets me actually shoot projectiles. I am mad because I'm bad right now. Okay, jump over. Good. Volgar the Viking and in particular Bleed as well are both kind of games that if you liked, you would probably like this as well. I'm not 100% sold on Oniken so far. I have only played for about an hour, but I do think it's good. Oh god. Because of the resolution that this game runs in, that achievement is enormous. I'm just going to hang out until that gets off the screen. Okay, get low. Fantastic. Yeah, if you're a fan of, like, you know, if you grew up with games like Ninja Gaiden and Contra, this is probably the kind of game that you would absolutely be into. I know I grew up with those games, and I played a lot of those games, actually, even when I was in university, to kind of get a feel for, you know, my gaming history, if you will, and I have an appreciation for what this game does. I don't think it's as successful necessarily as maybe something like a Mega Man 9 was at, you know, really capturing that aesthetic of the late 80s and early 90s while still being really fun, but I do think this game has an extraordinary amount of value in and of itself. It's $8. If you think that's expensive, actually it's $5.60 for its opening week sale, which is like 30% off. But if you think $8 is expensive for an NES game, you should check out the you know, Nintendo eShop and Virtual Console sometimes. I can't imagine how much money over the years I have spent paying for Super Mario Bros. 2: The Lost Levels. Probably like $10 a copy times like 3 different devices now. But anyway, I digress. Really, a major strength of Oniken is great boss fights. This is just a mini boss fight here, and the game also has kind of like an absurd 80s action movie style. You could almost think of it, you know, not that Terminator is absurd, but you can think of it as very similar to Terminator, but it's also got like that really muscly kind of like action hero-y type vibe, and good action set pieces that happen in the game as well. I'm a sucker for things like this, you know, the falling rocks or meteors segments that happen in a lot of games like this. Obviously, yes, if I fall, I will just die instantly. Apart from that, we have a health bar. But also, if you're the kind of person that enjoys, say, hover bike segments in your game, there have been a lot of those so far, and they do go a long way towards adding a lot of variety. And I'm noticing, actually, that, you know, this is kind of a cliche at this point, but saying that something is, you know, easy to play, hard to master, that definitely strikes me as being true with Oniken so far, because the first time that I was actually playing this, I was doing a piss-poor job and died multiple times at that first mini-boss. Now I cut him through as if there was no issue whatsoever, but still, don't want to get hit by a rock here, because if I fall down into this debris, I'm going to have a hard time getting back up. And there are checkpoints, and they're fairly generous with the checkpoints, but that being said, you know, you still don't want to have to redo any of the level if you don't have to. So, Riku is like our, sorry, Rico, not Kingdom Hearts, is our mission leader. He says, oh man, bad news. Jenny's still inside of the base with the rest of the survivors. We're part of like a strike force team here. And there's a huge battleship preparing to shoot its main gun at them. We have to do something. We must save Jenny and the others. That's true, yeah. 8675309. Why don't you just call her up right now? I'll take that battleship. You go get Jenny out of that base. And then he's going to tell us, like, it's suicide. Yeah, okay. Man, that's suicide. You'll be killed before you reach that ship. With 3 exclamation points, which is appropriate, I would say. So yeah, I just wanted to show that cutscene because it definitely, you know, does a very good job of explaining the kind of aesthetic and atmosphere that the game is going for here. But I'm going to skip through that cutscene and we'll just keep playing here. If I can beat the first 2 missions, I would feel really proud of myself because I had a really hard time doing that off camera. But with a little bit of practice, it becomes a little bit easier. So overall, impressions on Oniken. What do I like, what do I not like? I'm playing this on an Xbox 360 controller. One thing I really don't like is that to throw grenades, I have to use up on the D-pad and press the attack button at the same time. That's something that I totally get why they did it, because it's like an adherence to that NES controller. You know, the NES controller only has a couple of buttons. One to jump, one to shoot. I am taking some very terrible damage. Yes, I deserve to die there. And I hope they burn in hell. No, but, yeah, the NES controller only has 2 buttons. I understand why you would have to press, like, a button, and a direction in order to do, like, a secondary command. Oh, I'm effing it up already as well. That being said, because this is the modern day, I appreciate the adherence to kind of NES aesthetic, but oftentimes I find myself wanting to throw a grenade and being unable to do so, because of the kind of clunky control scheme only associated with the grenades. Attacking and jumping still works totally fine. See, I didn't even mean to throw a grenade there. I got lucky in that that was the perfect time to do it, but I didn't mean to. But that's okay, because it worked out in my favor. Alright, if we can just get to this checkpoint, I would feel better. Because when you die, if you, like, lose your, all of your lives, you can see I only have 2 left right now. If I lose both of those lives, we'll still restart on this level. So it's not like I have to restart from the very beginning of the game. And there's no password system or anything like that, which I think is another thing that was smart to avoid. Apart from that, I have basically exclusively either mutedly positive or positive things to say about Oniken. As someone who grew up playing these kinds of games and has played them, you know, into adolescence as a teenager and into adulthood as well, this is a very faithful recreation or, you know, kind of reimagining of an NES action game. I don't know why he's jumping like crazy, but that was pretty cool. Yeah, it does a great job of kind of capturing the charm of those NES games, and I think it's, you know, it picked a pretty narrow thing to adhere to, and it adhered to it quite well. All because we have that special ability with our sword, we are much stronger than usual. And yeah, you know, the platforming feels good, the action feels good, and the balance of difficulty feels pretty good as well. Oh, I can't believe I got hit there. The way that this works, by the way, I did get that, I do have grenades, but it's hard to, like, throw a grenade and jump at the same time. Oh, there we go. We actually managed to make it work. If you get certain power-ups, like the one that is the sword, then you can get actually a projectile attack in addition to the just standard melee attack. And this is extremely helpful, but also if you get hit a couple of times, you actually end up losing it. I think that's what that blue kind of 1 next to it means. We actually are coming up to the boss fight here. And it would be a damn shame if I managed to beat the boss so quickly, but at the same time, you know, it's all, the boss fights are not like bullet sponges, you know, it's all pattern recognition. So once you actually memorize those patterns, it's actually fairly easy to repeat. So this is Geist, he's the battleship commander. The way that we're gonna beat him, is by slashing him with our sword when he moves like that. And when he casts those, like, beams of light from heaven, we just kind of run back and forth, because they appear in segments where we were standing earlier. So if we just kind of repeat this, we should be basically unkillable, and we'll get a chance to see a little bit of what's going on in the 3rd mission. I can't stress enough that, you know, part of the fun with games like this is sussing out that pattern, and just watching someone do it on the first try is not necessarily representative of what you will experience when you actually play through the game, because certainly I got hit and died on this boss multiple times. I don't know why that made that ping there. Maybe I earned a 1-up somehow by getting a lot of points. Or maybe, oh, that probably means that his armor is shielding it. Music's good too. That's obviously a plus if you're doing a game like this. A lot of these, you know, classic NES action platformers did have great music. Contra, Ninja Gaiden, you know, DuckTales, Moon Theme, although it's kind of aping a different aesthetic as well. Aping and aesthetic are the words of the day, apparently, for this video. I think I'm gonna die over this boss fight. I keep accidentally throwing grenades when I'm just trying to switch directions, which again is part of the foibles of the authentic but also a little bit frustrating control scheme. So we have to go through the first part of this battleship again, but it shouldn't be too bad. And once we're done with this, then we will be able to start living our life against that boss and maybe check out the 3rd mission as well. So, who would I recommend Oniken to? I would recommend it to anyone who, grew up playing games like Ninja Gaiden and Contra. Is it, are people going to be talking about this in 20 years the same way people talk about Ninja Gaiden and Contra now? Almost certainly not, and that's not to necessarily say it's that much of a worse game necessarily, but, it's coming out in a different landscape where something like this isn't necessarily as innovative or as impressive as it would have been 30 years ago or 20 years ago. That being said, that's not what it's going for. This is obviously not trying to be an innovative experience. It's more a throwback to the games that made our childhood so good and so frustrating, and when you would pay $50 for a game, and it would technically only be like 45 minutes long, but because we're bad at it and the game's very difficult, it would take us substantially longer to actually complete it. So if you're into that stuff, and you're okay with paying $5.60 or $8 for a few hours of, nostalgia for that, then I would definitely recommend giving this one a shot. What it feels like to me is almost a little bit like Intrusion 2, and I covered that a couple years ago now. Intrusion 2 is not a perfect game, although a lot of people liked it, but it is a game that is, it's perfect for some people, if that makes sense. This is not a game that everyone is gonna, enjoy fondly, I think, but for a certain subset of people, they'll enjoy it more than enough to make up for the people who don't necessarily find it up their alley. Oh, I totally forgot that we have this part. We actually have a real boss fight before the third mission as well. That was just our mini-boss, believe it or not. I will say, and I'm not sure if this is necessarily deliberate or not deliberate, but I do occasionally notice some real frame rate issues in the game. And there were real frame rate issues with some games on the NES. And maybe there's something to be said for the authenticity of that, but I also sometimes just feel like it doesn't necessarily perform well. But again, that's something, your mileage may vary. So here comes our boss fight. This is basically an elevator to get back to this boss fight. And this boss fight is actually pretty darn difficult. I'm hoping that I'll have a chance to succeed here, but I don't necessarily know. A medkit probably would have been more valuable for me there. Then again, I said that the earlier parts of the game were difficult and then kind of steamrolled them, but that's, practice makes perfect, right? So there's 3 segments on this enemy, on this boss, I guess I should say. That's important to make that distinction. Oh, get up there before the laser gets you. Okay, so we want to destroy the segments that shoot the beams at us. Otherwise, I'm going to find myself in a real nasty position momentarily. It's okay. I think we're going to die here, but we should have one more life. I think you get a 0 with life. That was like the ultimate question for all of these games when you were a kid. Is like, do you get a 0 with life? I'm about to lose my life. Do I get... Oh, I don't get a 0 with life. Okay, let's give it one more try here. Continue, obviously. I don't want to give up. We'll start again on Battleship Raid. And I mentioned that this is kind of similar to Volgar the Viking. I know Volgar did have checkpoints, but to me it kind of seemed like with Volgar you were supposed to kind of boot up the game and beat it all the way through, and if you were not able to beat it all the way through, then you turn it off and you start from the beginning next time. Oniken is not really like that. As you saw when I booted up, I was able to select whatever mission I wanted. I, kind of prefer that as someone who can't necessarily invest a ton of time to master every single one of these games that I play. I appreciate that. I think it makes it a little bit more accessible. That was a good grenade there. And again, there's a definite tangible feeling of improvement the more and more you play. Oh, we got a med kit, and then I probably blew it by exploding. It's okay, though. Don't get crushed into the wall. That's the big problem. Nice amphibious vehicle here. It handles well on land and on the sea. And there are more segments like this as well. In fact, I think there might be one more when we actually beat that boss. We might have to go through one more quick hover bike segment. But that's cool, man. Those were the segments that, really titillated you as a kid, or titillated me as a kid, at least. You know what would have titillated me as a kid, though? The word titillated. Anyway, we have infinite range, so I'm just gonna smash the bejesus out of this guy's ship. This reminds me a lot of Mega Man X in particular, like the boss fights that you fight against those ships on, the very first, tutorial level. Alright, so we're back at this part right here. We will have to beat the mini-boss again, but I think that'll be okay. Just in general, this is kind of like the best thing that I can say about Oniken, is that I like playing it, and that's why we're playing more of it. I could have reasonably stopped the video after my death there, but I didn't want to, because I wanted to show that I'm, capable of actually surmounting this challenge. I'm not necessarily the best in the world at these kinds of games. Please, thank you. But I have played a lot of them, so if I'm not at least competent, I've gone wrong somewhere. Okay, again, throwing grenades while jumping, especially with the Xbox 360 D-pad. Oh, that was stupid of me. A little bit tedious, but I guess that's partly the 360 D-pad's fault, so I shouldn't necessarily hold it too much against the game. And tangible feeling of improvement, as mentioned, the more you play, the more patterns you recognize, and the quicker you recognize those patterns, and the better able you are to surmount those patterns. And, you can do some sweet one-arm push-ups on the ground. That's always important when you're spending a little bit of time in a game waiting. It's always nice to be able to do some one-arm push-ups and improve your strength. Okay, just get out of the way here. I accidentally threw a grenade there as well. Maybe it is because I'm using the D-pad instead of the analog stick on this controller, but it feels like sacrilege to use the analog stick on a game like this. A lot of people won't care about that, but, you know, if you watch the NLSS, you know that I'm a little anal about my D-pad usage. Even though the Xbox 360 D-pad is bad, I still use it for games like Spelunky and Super Meat Boy. Actually, maybe I use the analog stick now and then for Super Meat Boy. I can't remember. It's been a little while. There we go. We've successfully gotten past our mini-boss there. And I think we'll be able to get to the boss for sure on this one. It's just a matter of how much damage I take. Oh, yeah, probably shouldn't have stood, like, right below. Took 2 hits there. You can actually block the bullets with your sword if you manage to hit them, which is nice as well. Gives it a little bit of a samurai gun type feeling. I suppose I would have liked it a little bit more if you could actually, like, bounce the bullets back. Oh, well, though. There we go. One more. Oh, did he disappear? I guess I don't even get the opportunity to kill him. So we should be able to kill this guy easily without getting hit. The biggest enemy, you know, the standard NES rules, the biggest enemy is sometimes the easiest. You know shit's about to go down when you fight someone who's the same size as yourself. Okay, that's a nice upgrade. At that point, this is maybe overkill. I probably would have preferred some health to some extra damage here, but so be it. If we play well and platform well, we might be able to get through this regardless. And you know what? This is kind of separate from the game itself now, but this is the kind of game that I feel is like a perfect fit for Greenlight as an initiative, right? Like, this game may not have made it through or onto Steam any other way, and it deserves to be on Steam. Certainly there's a lot of games that are substantially worse than this, which made it through the Greenlight platform. This is a Greenlight story that I think people can feel reasonably good about. That was an accidental grenade and a great grenade. I should just kind of focus on standing up here so I don't get zapped again, probably. And that thing should be dead very soon. I think, yep. Okay, we surmounted the boss. And I think we might have one more section just before we... Oh no, that is the end of the mission. No death too. Well, okay, the first time I got a game over, and the second time I didn't lose any lives. That's gonna do it for my impressions on Oniken. Again, I would encourage you to go check it out if you are the kind of person who is interested in NES action platformers, basically. This was a huge genre back in the day, and it's a genre that I enjoy a great deal, you know. Contra Super C and Contra 3 The Alien War, some of my favorite games of all time. Was never very good in Ninja Gaiden, but, you know, appreciated it nonetheless. Huge fan of Castlevania, especially the games like Super Castlevania 4. But anyway, this is Oniken. Those are the inspirations that it pulls from, and I think it does a reasonably good job. Don't expect it to necessarily be as classic as those games, and remember that a lot of your enjoyment for those games is still rooted a little bit in nostalgia, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I think Oniken does an admirable job of kind of, you know, aping those games without necessarily stepping all over their toes. So you can check it out on Steam. There is a link in the video description below to pick it up. $5.60 for its opening week sale, and $8 after that. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to show your support by clicking the like button. It helps out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Thanks for watching again, and I will see you next time.